Well guys, this is the first episode of Camry 101, and I'm going to answer the question I get asked the most. How do you hotwire an alternator, and how do you hotwire a starter inside this? Inside a Toyota, basically. And it's pretty much the same for almost every car except for older Fords, how you do this. But I'm going to show you guys, well, the starter. I'm going to show you guys how to do the Toyota. So if you take a look at the alternator, there's a couple of wires. I'm going to bring you guys closer. So while you're looking at your alternator, you have your main power wire. So this is the big thick wire. Then you have these three. So if you're going to hot wire your alternator in a Toyota, what you do is you cut all these three, just like that. So now you have these three. And what you want to do is you want to cut off the yellow. You want to cut off the white. And all that you want left is the red wire. You bare this wire up, just like that. And now you hook a wire from here to a 12-volt source to the positive on your battery, so that when you turn it on, it will now turn your alternator on. But if you do not have this big wire running to your battery, it will not charge. It will turn the alternator on and it will charge, but the amperage will go nowhere. So not only do you have to put 12-volt power to this wire, you also have to take this wire and run it to your battery. Because if you run the factory harness, this will work, but if you run an aftermarket standalone harness, the alternator will no longer work in the factory harness. So that again is the one red wire. Now some guys on the internet I see take this wire and they put it right on the main power source here, which is good if you disconnect the negative on your battery every time you turn it off. Because if you hardwire this alternator just like that, that will leave the alternator on all the time. And if the alternator is left on all the time, you're going to kill your battery and you're going to kill the alternator. So what I like to do is have it hooked up to a separate power source, because I don't like disconnecting my batteries that much unless there's a drain in the system. So 12-volt power to the red wire on a toggle switch, and the main wire goes from the alternator to the positive on the battery. Pretty simple. That's how you do a Toyota standalone alternator wiring. Now with the alternator explained, I'm going to turn my attention to the starter. Now, these starters are pretty much the same as every starter ever made. You have a main power wire that goes from the main positive on the starter to your battery. 100% of the time, it is a hard positive. Then you have the solenoid, which is you have to supply 12-volt power to on either a push button or a strike. I wouldn't put it on a toggle switch unless it's a returning toggle switch, because if you accidentally leave it on, it will just leave the starter running while your car is running. So there's only really two wires that you have to worry about on your Toyota, and I will show you those. So on the factory harness, this is your positive cable that goes to your battery. As you see, there's a smaller cable, and that goes to the fuse panel. So that will be eliminated. If you take a look at this one, this is a big, thick starter cable that goes straight from the battery to the positive. So when I do mine, I either join to the end of this, or I go right to the starter here. Take my main positive wire right from the starter to the battery, and then this wire right here just quickly unplugs. There's no negative, it's just one wire. That is your solenoid signal to turn the starter on. So you have this hooked up to a push button, and then you just plug it right back in. So when you push the button, the car turns over. That is the two most common questions I get asked about Toyotas, is how to hotwire my alternator and how to hotwire my starter. I know a lot of you derby guys, this is very common knowledge, but if a lot of people that are just starting out that don't know this, this is valuable knowledge that they will need in their careers of derbying cars. So thank you everybody for watching. This has been the first episode of Camry 101. V6 and 4-cylinder starters in 92 to 2001 are all the same. There's little differences on where the power comes in, but you can pretty much put a V6 starter into a 4-cylinder, no issues at all. Alternators are a little bit different. The plugs are the same, the main power is the same, but where they mount up to the motor is different. So remember that. There you go, guys. See you back here tomorrow.